I'm Annette Gordon-Reed. I'm the Carl M. Loeb University Professor at Harvard University. I wrote a book called On Juneteenth, which is a memoir and a history mixed together. I'm a historian by profession. I usually write about other people, other people's families. So this was something of a departure for me to actually try to do history through my family's story. My family has been in Texas for many generations. I could count back to or trace back to the 1820s in Texas on one side of my family, the 1850s on another side. So I felt that I was equipped and I had the right to be able to tell this story of Juneteenth, which is June 19th, 1865. That's the day when General Gordon Granger came to Texas and announced the end of slavery at the end of the Civil War. Most people think that the Civil War ended in April of 1865 when Lee surrendered at Appomattox. But the Army of the Trans-Mississippi, that is, the Texas Army was a part of that, kept fighting. They kept fighting up until June. In fact, the last battle of the Civil War was fought in Texas, and the Confederates actually won. They won that battle, but they understood that the war was essentially over, and they surrendered in June 2nd, 1865. Now, the Emancipation Proclamation had been signed before then, 3 years before then, by Lincoln. And as the Army of the United States moved across the South, it helped liberate enslaved people from plantations, and the enslaved people liberated themselves in many instances, running away to join the Army of the United States. But they kept fighting in Texas, so there was no way for them to declare slavery was over until the fighting stopped. When it stopped in June 2nd, that's when Granger makes arrangements and goes to Galveston, Texas, lands at Galveston with troops, and makes the announcement that slavery is over. The story is told that he stood on a balcony and read out General Order Number 3, which proclaimed the end of slavery. He probably did that, or he may have done that, but they also went around the town and posted placards saying that slavery was over. There was a great amount of jubilation on the part of enslaved people. There was also a lot of anger on the part of the former enslavers because they had lost their property rights. And one of the things that I found as I was researching the book was there were a number of instances where people who celebrated were actually punished for celebration. One story in one particular town, dozens of people were whipped for celebrating the end of slavery. And you can imagine how happy they must have been, but at the same time, the amount of resentment that was on the other side. So one of the things that I found, or one of the things that I started to think about, is that Juneteenth, as it was shortened to, at first it was called Emancipation Day, but June 19th, shortened to Juneteenth, was as much of a beginning as it was an ending. Legalized slavery ended, but the struggle for African American rights in Texas and across the country just really started during that time period. General Order Number 3 that was read aloud also said that now, at that time, the former slaves would occupy a position of absolute equality with their former enslavers. Now you can imagine how that fell on the ears of the enslaved people and how it fell on the ears of their former enslavers. It was not something that was accomplished right away. It's something that we're still working on, as a matter of fact. But it was the beginning of that journey in the state and also across the country to make sure that the promises of the Declaration of Independence actually came true and we fulfilled America's creed. So it was wonderful doing the book, finding out about my family, but also doing this at a time when the holiday became a national holiday. My book came out in May, and the president made it a national holiday in June. So it worked out very, very well for me. And I'm glad that it's a holiday now that people will celebrate as a family story, but also as an advance in human rights.